we welcome you to the official podcast of the Fish Wrapper publication, bringing you story content to inspire, encourage, and uplift the soul. It's our hope you find these stories refreshing, thought-provoking, and motivating as you face the challenges of everyday life. So turn us up and tune your ears, and let's get started by jumping right into the story.
Doe, Ray, and Me by Pat Kilmer. Read by Lisa Hurst. Part 1. Tomorrow we bake. My husband Ray exulted as he unwrapped the package and sniffed the yeast ecstatically. Yes, I thought, tomorrow we bake, or else. We had used the last of our coffee that morning. All we had in the world was $2.36. I was full of anticipation and dread. It was going to be wonderful baking, being in business for ourselves. But what if it didn't turn out well? What if Ray had more confidence than ability? Until 4 months ago, we had been Mr. and Mrs. Average Automotive Tool Engineer, living in a rented house in Detroit. Where else? With our brighter-than-average children. At least we were sure of this. Boots, a 10-year-old edition of his dad, with dark eyes and long legs, and Jean, a blonde, blue-eyed charmer of 4. Then Ray had strode into our living room shouting, "How would you like to be a baker's wife?" This was his greeting to me upon returning from a 3-month absence in Arizona. He had gone there to get rid of a sinus infection and had been bitten by the baker's bug while working, to pass time, in a bake shop. "Pat, baby," he urged me excitedly. "The West is full of little towns wide open to new business. We could be our own bosses. Let's do it." Hadn't he mastered the art of bread making? Wasn't the number of tasty items that could be created from one basic sweet dough limited only by the creator's ingenuity? Of course, he would need a little help from me on cakes and pies and cookies, he went on happily. "I'm really sick of working for other people. I'm tired of being laid off. We could have our own bake shop. No hurry, no pressure. The children could ride horseback." "We want to ride horseback!" Boots and Jean shrieked together. "Well," I hedged. "Out west, we could buy a house and have several acres for the children to run." "I can swing it, Pat. Have I ever let you down?" "No," I said. "I'll go along." Naturally, we didn't plunge into the venture without some planning. We must have spent at least an hour balancing our assets. The assets consisted of around $1,500 in savings, whatever we could sell our furniture for, and Ray's limited, though confidently evaluated, experience as a baker. We bought a used 2-wheeled trailer, new spark plugs for our old car, new tubes for our tires, and got $700 for our furniture. Ray visited a big yeast company and got a load of how-to books. Also, he found out that we could set up shop in any town that had a post office. Moist yeast and pound bricks was mailable. In the middle of a hot and humid July, we Kilmer started off for somewhere Arizona. We stopped in Kansas City long enough to spend too much on used bakery equipment and tons of baking ingredients, all to be shipped to us as soon as we were located. It was after we left Cabeza, New Mexico in the rain that the car began to burp blue smoke. And with the motor banging out a 1-2 miss 3 rhythm, we were glad to see a so-called town ahead, even if it wasn't in Arizona. We pulled up in front of a 2-storied wooden building with plate glass windows and a sign reading, "Hotel." Mr. Walker, the hotel proprietor, came out to meet us. A big fellow nearing 50, he was a person to like at first sight. "Howdy, folks. Come right in," Mr. Walker yelled. I hope you can let us have a couple of rooms, Ray said as he got out. Yes, yes, Mr. Walker roared. How long you going to stay? Just tonight. Ray was a little on edge. I don't suppose there's a mechanic here who could do some work on our car, is there? We have the best automobile man in New Mexico right here in Cabeza, Mr. Walker shouted. He rarely spoke in a normal voice, it seemed. Our host became aware, finally, that we were standing in the rain. Get them children in before they get drowned, Mr. Walker chided us as he ushered us inside. The combination dining room and lobby was cheerful. A wood fire was blazing in a fat stove. An eyeless antelope head hung above the door, and several gorgeous Navajo rugs were scattered about. On coming down to dinner, we were shown to a large table. The Walkers joined us. Their permanent hotel guest, Roger Padilla, also ate with us. Roger, the son of a sheep rancher, was the school principal in Cabeza. Mr. Walker had a way of getting information without making his informant feel interrogated. In no time, he knew where we were going, as nearly as we did, and why. Neither Ray nor I tied his suddenly thoughtful expression in with what we had told about ourselves. We sensed no tie-in when he left the table and went outdoors. When he returned, he asked Ray if he was ready to talk to the mechanic. It must have been a little after 9 when I got the children to bed. After I turned off the light, I stood for a few minutes looking out the window. The clouds were gone. Stars were admiring themselves in puddles. Little squares of yellow light marked the windows of adobe houses. Not a harsh street light in sight, nor a harsh neon sign. The whole scene had an unspoiled naturalness. Somehow it made me feel content. For breakfast, we had bread with green polka dots. Walker must be making his own penicillin, Ray commented. That's mold, Mr. Walker yelled. It's the way bread is when it gets here from Albuquerque. Comes by mail 3 times a week. Albuquerque isn't so far away, Ray said. The bread shouldn't be moldy when it gets here. It's packed hot. Sweat's on the way. That was a bit of a stretch. Bread could arrive from Albuquerque in excellent condition, we found out. Mr. Walker had to dig around to find what he served us that morning. But it was the starting gun in his campaign, and he saw nothing unethical about shooting it off. You folks could do good opening a bakery right here, Mr. Walker bellowed. We need one bad. But is the town big enough to support a bakery? Ray asked. You can't judge by the town, Ray. You gotta figure on mail days. Folks come for miles to get their mail. I'll think about it and look the town over, Ray said. Mr. Walker knew when not to press. After breakfast, he walked us down to the garage. Ed Jepson, the mechanic, had the car in fine working order, except for one thing. The windshield was smashed. Sorry about that, Ed Jepson said. Wrench slipped. It'll take a couple of days to get the glass from Magdalena, the nearest town. I expected Ray to blow up. When he didn't, I asked why. Because I know a delaying action when I see it. He grinned. Shush, here comes the strategist. Mr. Walker faked surprise when he saw the windshield. That's going to hold you up some, Ray. Might as well take a walk around town. Got a place I want to show you. He led us down the street, road, to a vacant building, then remembered something he had to do, and left us standing in front of it. Ray peered through a dusty plate glass window and said, It's big enough, anyway. It's a trap, I said. I know. Wonder what he'll use for bait. Mr. Walker came right back, bait in tow. Roger Padilla, owner of the building, and T.G. Turner, postmaster and owner of the general store in which the post office was housed, were with him. Roger unlocked the door and flung it open. The store was much too large for the modest bakery we had in mind, but Roger, undoubtedly coached and advanced, immediately pointed out that rooms could be partitioned off. "I'd be glad to wall off 2 rooms for you to live in," Roger said. T.G. Turner came in right on cue. "I'd stop taking bread from Albuquerque if you settled here." "We use right much bread at the hotel," Mr. Walker yelled, discharging another bullet from his campaign gun. "We were planning on Arizona," Ray said, though not very strongly. Roger produced the clincher. "You can have the first 3 months rent-free, Ray. After that, the rent would be $30 a month." We had figured on $50 a month at least, and no free rent or living quarters. I could practically hear Ray's brain doing arithmetic. "It's a nice offer," Ray said finally. "We'll talk it over." The 3 civic-minded gentlemen left us to talk it over. I knew the trip and the bakery equipment had already cost more than we had thought they would. The sooner we got on an earning basis, the better. But this town? From where I stood, I could see all of Cabeza, more a concentration of buildings than a town. The building we would occupy, if we stayed, was at the end of the business section, if one could call a garage, a hotel, a general store/post office, and a vacant store with a barber pole in front, a business section. There were about 100 little houses, mainly adobe, scattered around. I had no clear picture of Arizona in mind, but even my foggiest conception was no relation to Cabeza. Certainly, I had not considered settling in a town with no sidewalks, no paved streets, no planned layout. Yet the very lack of those things seemed to emphasize independence, rather than suggest backwardness. People strolling by looked happy and unhurried. "I like it, darling," I said. "Me too. I think it's a good spot." A woman stopped to speak to us. "Nice you're going to open a bakery here," she smiled. "We're not sure yet," Ray said, bluffing. Experienced people would have been basing their decision on hard, cold questions like, how available were utilities, and how much extra was it going to cost to have all of our baking supplies hauled from Magdalena? But we were not experienced people. We were children with a lemonade stand.
We hope you've been enjoying the story. We will continue in just a moment. We want to remind you that the Fish Wrapper is available by subscription. Each issue of the Fish Wrapper is jam-packed, full of story content, amazing recipes to delight your kitchen table, games, jokes, and much, much more. Don't miss an issue. Order yours today. Visit us at thefishwrapperonline.com or by calling 717-400-FISH. That number again is 717-400-FISH. Now let's return and finish the story.
"What's all the excitement?" Ray hailed a man getting out of a wagon that afternoon. "Mail's in. Say, I expect you're the new baker. Give it to him, Sadie." Sadie reached under the wagon seat and brought up a mason jar filled with gray stuff. "We brought you a startin' of yeast," Sadie said, and handed it to me. Her face was glowing with neighborly intent. I hadn't the heart to tell her that we would be using commercial yeast. I thanked her and accepted the jar. Everybody was trying to get into the post office, which was already crowded. Nevertheless, an aisle automatically opened up for Ray and me. T.G. was busy opening sacks and distributing the mail. A big percentage of the addressees were on hand to receive theirs. Then T.G. opened the bread cartons. Loaves were snatched from his hands as fast as he could get them unpacked. Later, we found out that not all of those people bought light bread regularly. In fact, not all of them came to town every mail day. But no one within notifying distance had stayed home that day, and as many as could get in bought light bread. For all of its hasty planning, Mr. Walker's campaign was a success. Ray watched the bread cartons being emptied, exchanged glances with T.G., Mr. Walker, and Roger, and committed us with a nod and a grin from each. I guess we had been in bed for an hour or so that night when Ray sat straight up. "Pat, what fuel did Mrs. T.G. use to cook with tonight?" "Oil." She has a horrible realization choked me off. The hotel kitchen was equipped with a wood-burning stove. Columns of wood smoke rose from all the little adobe houses. The air in Cabeza was pungent with wood smoke, but the oven we bought and had waiting in Kansas City for us was a gas-burning job. "Maybe this isn't such a hot location after all," Ray groaned. "No gas, no electricity." "No electricity? What do you call that light we turned off here and the one at TG's?" "I call them lighting systems. A generator in the backyard manufactures the juice." "You mean everyone hasn't?" "That was lamplight that I had gone poetic over the night before." "That's exactly what I mean, baby. Now that I think of it, I don't remember seeing any light fixtures in that store we're renting. I'll bet Walker and TG have the only power generators in town." It turned out that the only other generator in town was at the schoolhouse. A whispered consultation followed. We decided to see if something could be done. Ray sent a telegram to our Kansas City suppliers, asking them if they had a wood-burning oven to send us. The answer came 2 days later. "Can substitute coal or wood burner in fair shape. Advise." But by then Ray had done some thinking. "I don't think we'll stay here," he said. "This wood business is going to be a problem." "Not at all," Mr. Walker roared. "I can let you have a couple of cords to get started, and there's plenty of able bodies to fetch wood any time you want it." "I've ordered lumber for the partitions," Roger informed us. "And I've told Albuquerque I'll be stopping their bread pretty soon," T.G. chipped in. Ray finally capitulated. A week later, the place was ready for us to move into, and we wished we could do it. 4 people living in even a moderately priced hotel ran into money. We had planned to live in furnished quarters. There were no furnished quarters for rent in Cabeza. When our bakery equipment arrived, we would be able to cook our meals in the bakery, but we would still have to sleep at the hotel. Another week passed, and we still had not received word that our stuff was in Magdalena. We were griping out loud one day when Mr. Walker heard us. That's when we found out that he and Roger supposed we had furniture coming with the bakery equipment. We explained that we had expected to rent a furnished place. "That don't make sense," Mr. Walker yelled. "Why don't you buy some second-hand stuff and start living in the bakery right now?" We couldn't do that. We did not dare spend a penny beyond food and housing until the freight and hauling were paid for. We didn't tell Mr. Walker that. I'm sure he guessed it from the look that passed between Ray and me. "No, I reckon you'll want to buy new stuff when you buy," Mr. Walker shouted at once. "But ain't no sense you staying at the hotel till you get the bakery going good. I'm going to give you a furniture shower. I got a bedstead we can start with." If ever a man was born for people like us to lean on, it was Mr. Walker. We protested some for our pride's sake, but Mr. Walker yelled our protest down. Furniture showers were common in these parts. Mr. Walker made his arrangements in the post office, right in front of us. "Now looky here, folks. Pat and Ray's given us something we've been needing a long spell. I reckon we ought to do something for them." The next morning, furniture began to arrive at the bakery. Mr. Walker and Ed Jepson lugged the bed, complete with slats and a straw tick, down from the hotel. The other things came by box wagon and car. We received 10 chairs, a round table with extra leaves, and a square table. We got a 2-burner oil stove, used, 2 kerosene lamps. Roger Padilla came in bringing a Navajo rug, and T.G. contributed 2 huge water pails. Ray grinned wryly when he saw those. They reminded him that we hadn't thought about checking our water supply until after he had sent the telegram accepting the wood/coal-burning oven. He was going to have to carry all the water we used. Our first evening at home was not too homey. The oil stove gave me a bad time. We set the bedstead up in one of the rooms and prepared the other room for the children, dividing the furniture between them and putting all that was left over in the bakery, which was going to be our living room as well as our place of business. I often wished the bakery didn't have such a nice big plate glass window, but eventually I got used to eating before an audience. Near the end of the first week of September, our equipment and supplies finally came, and 2 days later, our first shipment of moist yeast, 2 1-pound blocks, arrived in the mail. On that first day we baked, when so much depended on Ray's success, he was up before dawn. He kindled a fire under the oven and stoked it with cedar chunks. It hardly smoked at all once he got the hang of the dampers. It ate up an awful lot of wood before there was an ash bed that would hold heat, though. But Ray expected that, he said. He mixed the first batch of bread dough and set it to rise before breakfast. To be continued.
We hope you enjoyed the story, and will join us again soon when we unravel another adventure from the pages of the Fish Wrapper. We encourage you to like and subscribe to this podcast, ensuring you never miss a new episode. See you again soon, and may our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ guide you.